What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I'm really excited. I got a special guest on today, Dave from GMENHQ. He's a writer, contributor on the website over there. Wanted to come on the channel and kind of give some insight as far as like late round draft prospects for the New York Giants. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about Simmons and the first round as well, but we're going to focus mainly on the late rounds. I just want to say thank you for coming on, Dave.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of the show, and I'm so excited about this draft.
Yeah, you and me both, man. You hear a new rumor every day, but I can't. It's a week away. We're gonna find out sooner than later.
Yeah, my favorite rumor was that his dog knows the best about his first round pick because he's like with him 15 hours every day in the basement. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
And it's good because you know that Judge is the kind of guy that's just grinding tape 24/7. So I like that.
yeah, absolutely. And we were talking before we went live, not live recording, but you're a big Clemson guy, so I'm assuming you're big on Isaiah Simmons. Do you think they go with him at number 4?
I really think I do, especially with what I heard from Judge today. He seems like he wants to go with the guy with the highest upside. I've been on Simmons for such a long time, even the beginning of the college football season. And the year before, I've kind of been eyeing him as like a very athletic linebacker, someone we need that can, do so many different things. Line him up at deep half safety, where he's actually, a really good player at safety in the deep zone. He was able to pick off that pass against Ohio State in the semifinal game. He ran, 30 yards across the field. So I'd be so excited if they could get him. But at the same time, I understand we need like a premier left tackle or right tackle for Daniel Jones. So either way, if we go left tackle or linebacker, I think we're fine.
I kind of have the same exact mindset as you, and even in the championship game, he was great. I mean, you go back look at that game. He played. I think he played every position on the field outside of defensive tackle. But I'm kind of in agreement with you. Like if they go offensive tackle, to me is their biggest need right now with a second-year quarterback, new offense. But Isaiah Simmons certainly would fill a need and is definitely, by most people's standards, more than likely going to be the best player available when we pick at number 4. Unless Okuda drops, then maybe it's a debate on who's the best player available. But it'll be really interesting. As far as an out, let's get this take. Do you think there's even a distinct possibility? Because I think most people at this point think tackle or they think Simmons. Do you think there's even a small possibility that Okuda could fall and we could take him? Do you think, Chase Young? Do you think that's a possibility? And as far as trading down, what do you think is the most realistic outcome?
Akuda, they say I've been listening to all the different draft talk, and Todd McShay said that Akuda is probably the best cornerback in like 5 years. We just spent big money on Bradbury, and we spent that first round pick last year on DeAndre Baker. We traded multiple picks to kind of move up to get him. So it seems a little bit less likely for Akuda, but I think the only way we lose, honestly, in the first round is if we went in defensive lineman like a Derek Brown or a Kinlaw. If Gettleman just falls in love with one of those kinds of guys, like I think that's the only way we can feel bad about our first round pick. But never know because all kinds of things happen in the draft. We gave all that money to Leonard Williams, so I don't think we're going to go inside defensive lineman, but I really think that's the only way we lose in this first round of the draft.
I agree with you. Or if they took Jerry Jeudy, even though I think he's a great prospect, just wide receiver is not one of our biggest needs right now. So those are the two ways I'd be upset if they went with a guy like Derek Brown or a guy like Jeudy. But I think we both agree it's more almost, I would say 95% they're going to go offensive tackle or Simmons. But what I really wanted to talk about with you, because you brought up a lot of really good late-round prospects and educates me, I don't know about all these guys, that you think that the Giants could potentially take, rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's where championships are won. We all know that. You go back, look at prior history. I mean, Victor Cruz was undrafted. Ahmad Bradshaw, 7th-round pick. Number of great Giants were, late-round draft picks, and that's why they won Super Bowls. Which guys in this draft do you think make the most sense in the later rounds for the New York Giants?
Yeah, I mean, when looking at the needs of the team, I think, in my opinion, even bigger than offensive tackle would be edge rusher. Just watching the defense, it's very frustrating sometimes when the quarterback gets 4, 5, 6 seconds in the pocket. So Looking at some edge rushers that might be available later in the draft, one person that really stuck out to me was Trevis Gibson from Tulane. We've had a lot of luck with small school sort of edge rushers in the past. Zimenez showed a lot of promise last year, and of course OC. I'm not saying he's another OC, but someone I'd kind of compare him to coming out of college would be Daniel Hunter,
Wow.
because he's very raw coming out of he doesn't have like the expert kind of pass rushing moves that even Zimenez would display, but he's very athletic. He's long. He has the perfect size for an edge rusher. Yeah, I like Gibson a lot. I think, he has the flexibility. That's the thing I look at with edge rushers is, can they get around the edge quickly? And he has the kind of speed and bend around the edge to make a difference. Against the run, he might struggle. He definitely needs to add some strength to his frame, but I think, you could coach him up for a year. He could be somebody down the road that could, do well for the Giants.
Sounds a little bit like, obviously not as advanced, but sounds a little bit like a guy we drafted 2 years ago, Lorenzo Carter, a guy that was an athletic, perfect build that needed to be coached up a little bit more. Sounds a lot like him, too.
Yeah, and I still have really high hopes on Carter. He's super athletic. I don't think Gibson is even as athletic as Carter is, but I think it's worth it to kind of take these late round flyers on, edge guys that you could coach up. They might develop a couple years down the line, but after quarterback, that's probably the most important position you need on a contending sort of team. So
Yeah.
Gibson's someone I really like a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the three most important needs, I say it all the time. It's the quarterback, it's the guy who could get after the quarterback, and it's the guy that could protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
Those are the three most important positions. And an edge rusher I like. I didn't see you mention in your article, but I'm curious to get your take on him. A lot of my subscribers love him. Was supposed to go undrafted, but then he had a really good combine or an unexpected combine. Did better than most people thought. I think he had a sub-7 on the three-cone drill. Derek Tuska. What do you think of him out of North Dakota State?
Yeah, actually, I mentioned him in one of my articles. I wrote an article from GMENHQ on athletic freaks that the Giants should sort of be targeting or looking at. And he was one of the ones from the later rounds because he comes from the small school. But his athletic numbers are like off the charts. And as an outside linebacker or a situational sort of pass rusher, he's definitely worth the late round pick in my opinion. They say like 6'9" and on the three-cone drill is like a threshold. If you beat that, that's where you're in like special pass rusher territory with like the Von Millers, the J.J. Watts. So I'm not saying he's going to be anything close to that, but he doesn't meet that threshold of getting in the 6'9" range. So I think he's worth a shot. He might be someone that climbs up teams' draft boards as we get closer because you want to take chances on edge rushers like we talked about.
Yeah, I remember. It might have been your article. I don't remember, but I remember I read that somewhere that he, like you just said, he passed his threshold where when most people have that specific time, almost always they're productive players at the NFL level, which is why a guy that was initially thought to be undrafted, now you see him going in the 5th, 6th round of these mock drafts with Tusker. So that's a guy I got my eye on in terms of late round prospects. What about the wide receiver position? I think the Giants are going to wait probably until rounds 4, 5, 6, 7 in that area to take the wide receiver. I personally think they're looking for a tall threat because you look at their roster right now. You got slot guys. You got the burner on the outside with Slayton, but he's 6'1". I think we could use a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" receiver. What's your thoughts in terms of late round prospects there?
Yeah, I mean, they say that this is the one of the stronger wide receiver class in a really long time. It's not as top heavy as probably like the 2014 class, which had Odell Beckham and Mike Evans. I don't think anyone in this class is going to be like that caliber. But there's a lot of guys you could get in like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round that might end up being the best wide receiver from this class. Like Michael Thomas was a 2nd round pick a few years back, and he might be considered the best receiver in the NFL. So, in the 2nd or 3rd round, someone like Michael Pittman I really like, Chase Claypool. Someone that people haven't talked about too much from Minnesota is Tyler Johnson. I would love with their late 3rd round pick. In the late rounds, I like Joe Reed out of Virginia, who has amazing kick return ability. I think he had 5 kick return touchdowns in college. He's big bodied. He's like 225 pounds. He was a all-state running back at Virginia. And I just have that feeling that Joe Judge is going to want amazing special teams. That's being the special teams guy. So he might be targeting these kind of guys like Joe Reed, who can actually cover punts. He can cover kicks. He's that big body guy. You can use him in gadget plays, sort of like Cordarrelle Patterson or the way Deebo Samuel was used last year for the 49ers on, end arounds and rushes. So Joe Reed is someone I like in like the 6th or 7th round that I think could be on the Giants' radar.
That sounds like a really interesting prospect, and I mean versatility. We think about versatility all the time on defense, but also offense. A guy that you could, like you said, you could do gadget plays. You could bring him in as a running back in certain packages, line him up on the outside. Yeah, that sounds like a very interesting prospect and the type of player that they could be looking in the 6th, 7th round area. Pittman, I completely agree with. I am a huge fan of Pittman. I think he's being underrated because he doesn't have the unbelievable athletic ability, right? But he's got the surest hands in the draft by a lot of people's standards. Sounds to me to be a very solid wide receiver. Now, I don't think we're going to get him at 99. To get him, we'd probably have to trade up, get an extra pick, because I don't think we'd take him at 36 either. He's probably going to fall between 50 and 70 in that range. But, yeah, that's a guy that I really like. I'm a big fan of Pittman, as well as Claypool.
Yeah, and Pittman is he's so tall. I feel like he has that kind of deceptive speed where it doesn't look like he's running that fast, but he's able to beat guys vertically. And the Giants do need that kind of big body receiver. Jason Garrett, you would think, would have that more vertical passing game that he utilized in Dallas. Slayton is, he's 6'1", but he's not the biggest build. And Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard are both better on the inside. So I think Pittman, if we can maybe trade back into that area that you were talking about, 50 to 70 range, could be someone that I think could be, he might end up being the best receiver in the draft. Like, I feel like he has that potential.
We had great success with I think it was a 3rd round pick out of USC, Steve Smith. He was on the Super Bowl team. So, so you never know. Another guy I want to bring up was a wide receiver that I like, and I see him going in the 5th round in a lot of these drafts. I think it's Hodges out of Oregon State. What do you think of him?
I'm not too familiar with him, to be honest. I've been looking a lot into the receivers that were able to produce, because there's so many good receivers in this draft. I've been looking a lot at Tyler Johnson. One of the games that stuck out to me was the game against Penn State. I was really excited for that game. He had 2 undefeated teams. And Tyler Johnson was like a man among boys. He was just, going up for jump balls. He's good after the catch. He's good in the slot. He's good on the outside.
Versatile.
He's not like the flashy. Yeah, he's not the flashiest kind of receiver like a lot of the receivers like Judy or
CeeDee Lamb.
A lot of these, a lot of these are really fast receivers. But I think Tyler Johnson is going to surprise a lot of people. He can definitely be like a starting caliber receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you on him too. From what I've read, I think he's 6'2". And another guy a lot of my subscribers like is Gandy Golden. A lot of people seem to like him. I think he's 6'4", 6'5", go up and catch the jump ball out of Liberty. A lot of people like him as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of those small school guys. One of the receivers I like that's sort of in the 7th round range out of Miami, because Miami had such trouble this year with their quarterbacks that they weren't able to, produce at the receiver position as much as you would like. But they had a receiver, and his name is just kind of escaping me at the moment. I'm gonna look him up real quick. Sorry.
That's all right. Out of Miami, you know what that sounds like? It sounds like Slayton from last year. Slayton, Auburn didn't have great quarterback production, and his numbers slipped because of it, and that's why he went later in the draft.
Yeah, Slayton. It's funny because you would think the quarterback who's going to be on New England this year, a lot of people were high on him, but Slayton wasn't able to produce that well, at Auburn. So you would think, maybe you could blame the quarterback, but Slayton really surprised people, I thought. Yeah, I'm trying to find the name. Sorry, Jeff Thomas.
Jeff Thomas. Okay.
Yeah.
So Jeff Thomas.
Jeff Thomas. Yeah, because I went with my friend. We went to the game in Dallas Stadium. It was the opening game of the 2018 season. It was Miami against LSU, and Jeff Thomas was torching the LSU secondary, who was, they have all these All-American players, these first-round draft picks, and Jeff Thomas has some like off-the-field issues, which might concern some teams, but they've even sort of compared him to Tyreek Hill because he's small, but he's extremely quick. He's good out of the slot. He could beat teams vertically, so just someone I think the Giants should consider in the later rounds.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So we've gone over the edge. We've gone over the wide receiver. Give me a couple of other positions and players that you like in the later round area to take a shot on.
I mean, some of my deeper picks in the seventh round, and someone I think the Giants actually have a decent chance of taking because he might be on their radar is Robert Windsor, who's a defensive lineman from Penn State. The Penn State's defensive line coach, Coach Chaos, or Sean Spencer, is now the Giants' defensive line coach. So he's sort of like an overachiever. Reminds me a little bit of Dave Tollefson because he's the ultimate hustle guy. But there was a game in 2019 where he kind of dominated Wisconsin's offensive line. Tyler Biadasz, who's a center that a lot of people like for the Giants, sort of got manhandled by Windsor. So he's a little bit undersized for an inside defensive lineman, but he's somebody that could kind of maybe come off the bench, get those hustle sacks, fight for a roster spot. So he's someone I think should be on the Giants' radar, especially with Sean Spencer in the fold.
That makes sense. Familiarity, and I saw in your article, if I remember correctly, you also had Batuli, the linebacker from Tennessee, who obviously we have Kevin Scher, who coached over at Tennessee. So there's another interesting name as well, middle linebacker.
Yeah, Batuli's more of like the old school linebacker where he's not the super athletic, but he could pound people inside. He was the leader of that defense. I think especially we have Tennessee's linebacker coach, we have their strength coach joining the Giants, so he's someone that's probably on the Giants' radar as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a theme. I've said that a lot this entire draft. I think that's going to be a theme with later round draft picks. Expect some of these kids to have been coached by the coaches on our roster, or at least be from within the conferences of these coaches. I think you're going to see a lot of familiarity with the players that we select. So I think that makes sense. I think prospects from Tennessee, keep an eye out on. Prospects from Penn State. Georgia, I think we got a coach from Georgia, and obviously Alabama with Joe Judge and Burns, the running back coach. So I think that you're going to see prospects from those schools going to the Giants.
Yeah, one guy that's not on the connection sort of radar for the Giants, but I really like sort of as a late round pick at offensive tackle is Charlie Heck, who he's a very athletic offensive lineman. He's 6'8", but he can actually move his feet really well. His father was an offensive lineman as well, Andy Heck, and he's now the Kansas City offensive line coach. So, he's been around the offensive line room for, growing up. I feel like he's someone they should consider because
good pedigree.
Yeah, and honestly, we need long-term solutions at both left and right tackle. So I think it's worth it to take a chance on guys like Heck who have high upside. He has the size, he has the length.
Yeah, like Big George last year. That doesn't seem to have worked out, but they did the same thing. They took a flyer last year with Georgia Safo-Ajay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things Gettleman has been good at in the past is finding these, offensive linemen later in the draft or middle of the draft.
Yeah,
like
Darrell Williams. Yeah. So hopefully that works out. And another offensive lineman that I like with pedigree that's going to go late in this draft is a former Giants rival son, John Runyon. I think he's got tackle and guard. They think he's more of a guard at the pro level.
Yeah, it would just be so cool because he was just a menace with the Eagles for so many years to take his son. But I mean, honestly, being around football your whole life and growing up, I feel like that's got to count a little bit. And Runyon is somebody they should definitely consider in the later rounds because like I said, we need solutions at right and left tackle. So. Soldier is going to be gone probably after this upcoming season, and we don't have a long-term right tackle. Cam Fleming is a very good swing tackle, but I definitely wouldn't call him like the long-term solution at right tackle for the Giants.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think he's a Band-Aid, kind of like what Remmers was. But let me ask you this: going into the season, let's say we take Simmons. Going into the season. First, let me ask you this. What do you think we're going to do in the second round? If we take Simmons, you don't necessarily have to give me a player. No trades involved. We're staying at 36. What position do you think we're targeting there at 36?
If I had to bet on it, I would say edge rusher is the position that we're probably looking at the most in the second round, especially if we go offensive tackle. If we go Simmons, I think there are a lot of offensive tackles that have a lot of potential in the second round. One person that I feel like should be on the Giants' radar is Isaiah Wilson from Georgia.
Yeah.
Giant right tackle, 350 pounds. He's actually from Brooklyn, so he has the New York roots. Just like Becton, he's athletic for his size. He's not nearly the super athlete that Becton is, but he is athletic. He was actually a more highly regarded recruit than Andrew Thomas coming out of high school. So he's someone with a lot of upside. I would be a little bit worried about him because of his like footwork and dealing with those faster edge rushers. And some of his footwork stuff reminds me a little bit too much of Eric Flowers. But
Hey, don't like hearing that. Don't
yeah,
like hearing
but
that.
I feel like that's the kind of guy, the Hog Molly sort of Dave Gettleman type that
For sure.
they
Yeah.
that they should be targeting because he can really move people in the run game, and he could definitely be Saquon Barkley's best friend over on the right side.
And what about center? You think they could go with Ruiz if he's there, Cushenberry in round 2?
Yeah, I mean, I like Ruiz a lot for the Giants because he's strong. He has a good anchor. There's so many good defensive tackles in the NFC East, so you want someone that can like hold their own in pass protection, not get pushed back. A power gap scheme sort of guy. I like Ruiz a lot. Cushenberry is very athletic. I think he fits better more in like a zone blocking scheme, like what the Giants tried to do last year. But I just have a feeling Ruiz won't be there at 36.
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, you have teams like Dallas who, Frederick retired this year. So if the Giants end up trading up or they end up trading back from number 4 and they could acquire more picks, I think he should definitely be on their radar. I did hear that they had an interview with him. So he's someone that I think would be perfect for the Giants. I just worry he won't be there at 36.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's there at 36. I think they'd have to trade up like they did with DeAndre Baker last year, and that's even if he got to like the 28, 29, 30 range. So let's say they draft Austin Jackson, Ezra Cleveland, Lucas Niang, or one of these second round tackle prospects. Do you think that they start on the bench to start the year, or do you think and Fleming or Gates starts, or do you think the rookie starts right away?
It's going to sound cliche, but I honestly think it'll be a wide open competition. And I feel like, Judge has a little bit of strategy by what he's saying with nobody has a starting spot. Everyone's going to be fighting for playing time. Best man wins. I feel like that kind of talk is going to attract those 30 undrafted free agents who think, you know what, if I'm the best player, I could play for this team or I could make this 53-man roster. So I really like Nick Gates. I thought Gates was really good last year, especially when he slid inside the guard. I remember Zeitler was hurt for a couple of games. I think Gates has a lot of potential. They were talking about maybe moving him to center. But I definitely think he's going to be in the right tackle kind of competition. One guy besides Isaiah Wilson, that's a second round sort of tackle prospect that I like is Niang.
Yeah.
But the reason he might fall a little further than 36 is he has some injury stuff. And with the lack of physicals and pro days,
that's what I've heard as well.
It might be hard to evaluate. But in 2018, Niang had a really good game against Chase Young and Bosa. So against Ohio State playing for TCU. So I think he's someone with high upside that they could be looking at number 36 if they end up going Simmons in the first round.
Yeah, of the potential tackles, that's what I've gathered as well. Of the potential tackles, if they wait till round 2, unless, of course, a guy like Jackson of Houston falls, or, he's pretty much the only guy that Austin Jackson seems to have been falling down a little bit. But from what I've gathered, Yang of the second round prospects has the highest upside, but like you said, carries the injury history.
Yeah, and Chase Young, after the game in 2018, we all know he was the best player in college football last year. But the game against TCU, he was basically manhandled. He couldn't get around him. And he said after that game, he said, I realized after facing Yang that I need to really improve my technique. I need to improve my pass rushing skills because I can't just against these quality offensive linemen, I can't just use my athleticism and run around him. So I thought that was pretty telling. A guy that as athletic as Chase Young was able to be handled by Niang. So that made me be kind of intrigued for the Giants at 36.
Good stuff, man. You did a great job. I'm sure a lot of my subscribers will definitely appreciate the information. Hopefully, I'm sure they're going to do their digging. They'll look up some of these prospects. And I just want to say thank you for coming on. And, if anybody hasn't done so, going over to GMENHQ. I've been to your website a few times. I actually talked to a couple of guys from your website. You guys do a great job over there. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing some of your knowledge.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm a big fan of the show. And, yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it.
You got it, buddy, man. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.